Hello there, I'm Leo Waldrop for Kit Guru, and this is the Synology DS115. It's almost impossible to keep track of all the models, but DS Disk Station 1, single one drive bay, and 15 is 2015. 215 would be a twin bay NAS from 2015, and yada yada yada. The 414 was a 4 bay from last year, 2014. So DS115, it's a single bay NAS. This particular one is black, as you can see, whereas the DS215J that I did a few months ago was white in colour. However, the two NAS are actually very similar, apart from the fact that this is just a single drive NAS. If I just remove that panel there, I've taken out the two fixing screws at the back, take away that vented half of the case, and there you have it in its glory. It's a very simple device. Only takes the one drive, up to 6 terabytes. That's a Western Digital Red 6 terabyte. The list of recommended drive and compatible drives that Synology has is just enormous. So any drive you like. And that is about the end of it, because of course you have very few options apart from putting a drive in, clicking install DSM and waiting for it all to happen, because of course you don't get any options on RAID. You don't get the option of mirroring or striping or any such. It doesn't apply. It's a single drive, and while you could monkey around with different partitions and such, like, realistically you're just going to click and let it do it, and then you're going to use it as storage. The hardware in here is an 800 megahertz dual-core Marvel ARM processor, the same as that DS215J that I mentioned before. On the back, because obviously this is a slender unit because it's got the single drive, that's a 60mm cooling fan, whereas with Synology we're used to seeing various sizes, including sort of 92mm fan on the 215J. Other models sometimes use an 80, sometimes a pair of 92s, all sorts, but that 60 is all that'll fit in that chassis, and then you get this external power brick that runs it. The Synology software, the DSM 5.1 software, is at least half of the NAS, in the sense that this is just a holder for your drive, and then on the back you've got one USB 3, one eSATA, one USB 2, and an Ethernet port, gigabit of course. And DSM is what pretty much makes or breaks this as a NAS. The current revision of DSM is very good indeed, very friendly. They now recommend that you install video, photo and music software from their package center. So basically click it, let it do it. You more or less have to tell it not to do that these days. So it gives you the basic software almost without asking. If you want extras such as the surveillance station to go with IP cameras, that's something you then need to actually select, which makes a lot of sense. This 115 costs £115, which is quite a bit of symmetry, isn't it? As that's also the model code. It's actually SRP is 120, but you can find it yourself for 115, but that's a trivial amount of a difference. The 215J is £160. Now, given that obviously hard drives are, a 6 terabyte drive in particular is a relatively expensive thing, but you could easily plug in a 2 terabyte, 3 terabyte drive and still have masses of storage. You do get into a philosophical thing here, which is how are you going to use your NAS? Now, if you're going down the Synology install the software they recommend route, that does imply using it as a kind of media tank. So you're going to have it next to your router, and when you're on your TV, you'll want to watch a particular movie or some such, and you'll just navigate to the movie you're after, click and play. And that's fine, in which case a single drive will do nicely for you. The fact of the matter is, however, that the main reason for using NAS is for data security, it's for backup. And if you have a single drive and that single drive fails, then of course your backup goes up in smoke. If on the other hand you have a twin drive unit and you're mirroring the drives, then if one drive fails, you still have the other drive, and therefore your backup is safe and secure. Clearly, if you're striping, then your data is, it's on the edge of a precipice at any moment. So if you are using your NAS for data backup, then you ought to be mirroring your drives. If you aren't particularly fussed about data backup, and if really it's just a way of having easy access to music and movies, then a single bay NAS is perfectly adequate. I'm going to chuck another option at you, however, which is actually my personal preference for watching movies and such like on the TV, which is that I simply bung a file or two on a USB flash drive and plug it into a Western Digital TV unit, one of those little media players. My thinking there is not that it's not particularly easier than using a NAS. I find it works nicely because I can go to my desktop PC, huge great screen, navigate to the file I want, copy it, job done. And USB 3 flash drives are very, very swift indeed. So you can transfer a gigabyte file in no time at all. It's more that I don't really much like navigating menus on sat at my TV or the remote control, because I find them just to be pain. When you go through a file table of gazillions of television and movies, that's a personal preference. So for me, the obvious reason for using a single drive NAS is for media purposes. However, I personally don't use a NAS in that way. For me, a NAS is for either serving a team of people in an office environment, or it's for data security. And in both those instances, I want my data to be mirrored and secure. So if your question is, how do I watch a truckload of TV and movies on my TV, or indeed some other PC or laptop around the house, how do I stream media across the network? This is absolutely a superb way of doing it, no two ways about it. If you want the option of data security, clearly it's hopeless, because once that drive fails in some way, shape or form, everything's just gone. And the thing is that the difference between the DS115 at £115 and the DS215J at £160, £45 for that extra bay, which you don't necessarily have to use in the first case. I mean, you could after all run with your single drive and add a second drive if you felt the urge at a later date. Although drives these days, by the great scheme of things, they are so cheap, it really shouldn't be a big deal to you. However, let's face it, money does count. I would say that £115, £120 for the DS115 gets you a load of hardware, but I really do think there's a lot to be said for actually going for the twin bay, which is barely any larger, and it gives you so many more options. It's also worth pointing out, it's a curious thing this, that Synology doesn't actually make any claims about the maximum read and write speeds for the DS115. They do for their various other NAS, and they certainly did for the DS215J, but not for this DS115. But the hardware inside it is, as far as I can see, just identical to that DS215J, and the performance seems to be very similar indeed. So for example, if you want to download 10 gigabytes of movie files from your NAS, it'll take you 5.5 minutes, which is 30 odd megabytes per second, which is fine. If you want to download a smaller movie, say a 3.3 Blu-ray, a 3.3 gigabyte Blu-ray, that'll run in about 40 seconds, and that's about 80 megabytes per second. I've had this before with Synology, how they handle files. If you want multiple files, it will try and zip it up into one file, and that clearly is being done within the NAS, and that puts quite a workload on the NAS. If you download a stream of files or an individual file, it just gets on and does it. So it makes a big difference. If you download a movie and a movie and a movie, or if you download 3 movies, they're 2 different processes. And the speed therefore is either like 30 megabytes per second or 80 megabytes per second. So that is worth bearing in mind. However, if you're going to watch a movie, it's not quite fair to say it's instantaneous, but it's so quick it really isn't a big deal either which way. And if you're doing that, then you probably don't much care about performance, because it takes as long for a drive that's asleep to wake up as it does the actual NAS to do its business. So the performance isn't really an issue. In terms of responsiveness, the dual-core processor is just like that. It works well. So I would say that the DS115 does its job very nicely indeed. As a single bay NAS, it's lovely, and the DSM 5.1 software is really good. I'm looking forward to seeing what Synology does with it in future, because I can't see any sort of obvious flaws in it now. They've sorted out the wrinkles with it. They've got the interface nicely uniform. You go from one app to another, it all looks the part. It's no longer a collection of parts, it is a whole, and they've done a very fine job there. Similarly, installation of DSM, connect your NAS, pick up your welcome to, go to your findsynology.com hyperlink, click install, wait 10 minutes, job done. It's just as easy can be. And they are almost beyond reproach in that respect. Except the fundamental is a single bay NAS offers you no data security, and for me that is a problem. So would I buy the DS115? Possibly not. However, that's only because I prefer to have a DS215J instead, because the £45 difference to me would be a very small investment and well worth the difference. But it works well. It's a good bit of kit. I like this one. So this is Leo Walder for Kit Guru with the Synology DS115.